rolling. Audio. Go for it.
Scene 11, take 4.
So the journey kind of started at the end of 2018. I visited Hawaii. I went on a tour through the Kualoa Ranch, which you probably recognize from Jurassic Park and a handful of other like big blockbuster films. And I remember like walking through the valley and you see all these huge mountains and hills. And I remember thinking like, this is stunning and this is really impressive, but kind of looks like the range back home. I reckon if, we picked our angles right and we went out to the right spots, we could shoot a scaled down version of what you'd expect from a Hollywood blockbuster. Cut. Cool. Awesome work, guys. You all good? Yeah, that was fantastic. Now we do it again. As you do with these low budget independent films, you end up stretching yourself thin across like 40 different roles and the film suffers as a result. So the one thing that I really wanted to get straight on this one was actually having like dedicated people for specific roles and knowing that they'd be really good at them.
I've been a photographer for about a decade now, mostly doing weddings, which may seem like a completely different world. So when Matt approached me and said he'd like to have me be director of photography for this film that he had planned, I was like, anything that can push my craft forward as a photographer, or as anything in the creative area, I was like keen to give a go.
You could just tell that Matt loved his characters, he loved the storyline. And as an actor, normally you don't really get people listening to your opinions, even though you do a huge deep dive into your character and the storyline. It really helps when the director and the writer puts aside what they had originally written down and sort of open up to everyone on set. So it was a really great experience, and you could see that from the start.
Questo è la vita.
Questa è la vita.
So I wanted to be involved in this project because it was a film project that was filmed in Toowoomba. And yeah, my first thoughts was they seem relatively organized. It definitely made me confident about the project to have people that were passionate and organized.
Right, we're good. Shot 5, take 2. Scene 10. Action.
I loved the concepts. I think it's not being done a lot in Australia, and I really wanted to use my physical potential and see how much I could bring to the screen. I had a great time on set. I just lapped up every minute of it. It was grueling, quite hard. I remember coming home most nights with pockets full of dirt and some nights without sleep, but I totally realized that this is what I want to do with the rest of my life.
I wanted to be involved in the project because I'd seen a copy of the script through Serene, and I immediately loved the script, and Serene said that she needed a brother in the film. And I thought, well, I look like you, sort of, or not.
I got on board pretty early on, knew Matt through university, done projects with him before, and I come in kind of a package deal with 2 others. Ben Patterson and Carl Baker and myself all kind of worked together, and I think Matt was pretty lucky to get us, honestly. We were pretty busy.
Yeah. Yeah, that's good. I mean, that was better.
What interested me most about this project was the sci-fi setting. Also being able to collaborate with the actors as the fight choreographer, being able to sort of show them the ideas and like set up the fighting so that it accentuate their characters.
I think in the beginning it was good because it was kind of a melding pot of talent coming together.
I pulled all my friends together and people I know around town that are kind of interested in filmmaking, and we had a crack at it, and I'm pleased to say pretty damn proud of the results.
It was business, but it was fun business. We didn't take it too seriously, but we always made sure that we worked to the schedule. We hit the benchmarks that we wanted to hit when we wanted to hit them, and we just had a lot of fun doing it along the way. Shot 2, scene 4, take 2.
I think it was New Year's Eve, and I was like, I'm not finishing this year without having an idea. And I just took out my phone and I wrote this note. Broke on a foreign planet, Cadence teams up with local bounty hunter to help find her missing brother. Done. Start work on that one next year.
Yeah, so that's going to look like that.
I conned everyone to be on board, and then we all started meeting up, having like production meetings.
So Matt and I did a heap of storyboarding for every scene in a conference room on a whiteboard.
We mapped out all the different setups we'd have to do each day.
And then, yeah, so when we met up, we were talking about potential areas to shoot in.
Thankfully, having Dan on board, he had like a whole heap of ideas right off the bat, because in the original draft of the script, I kind of knew I can't be specific about what we want because there's no guarantee that I'm going to be able to get it. So I think every single scene just started with the header exterior field. And then it was like us to just kind of talk back and forth about how I kind of imagined it, and he'd be like, oh yeah, I know a spot.
Some of them were in locations that weren't exactly close to where, close to town, so we had a bit of traveling to do.
We started acting out scenes and doing live storyboarding and planning out what we thought the shots could be in all these different locations. And it actually gave me a lot of faith that we could actually pull this thing off. I've been very nervous every step of the way. It's like, is this gonna work? Or is it gonna match the kind of vision that I have in my head for how good we can make this thing look? And I remember going out and shooting at these locations, and the next day he'd send it to me, edited up, as like, oh, this is kind of like a mock version of the scene. And I remember watching that and thinking like, oh yeah, maybe we can actually pull this off.
Yeah, we literally rehearsed some of the camera movements that involve sort of, more of a steady cam kind of situation. Following Jax, one of the characters, and sort of it goes up around a tree, and Matt kind of acted it all out, and it pretty much matched the shot we ended up with in the end. I think that was really helpful to be able to just sort of go out, shoot, even in the earlier stages, because it kind of formed what we were going to do.
The scene where Cadence is sitting on top of a hill right after she leaves the camp, that was the most natural bit of location scouting that we did, because we just were driving down the road and we happened to see this hill with a tree up on the top, and we thought like, that's perfect. And we pulled over and scrambled our way up the top, and we were like, we've got to use this spot. Who do we have to ask for permission?
There was a driveway like right next to where we parked. So we literally drove into the driveway and found this guy, and we were having a chat to him. And yeah, it was a really special place that we ended up being able to shoot there, just because we went in and had a chat to this guy, and he was more than happy to let us shoot our little film there. So it was pretty cool.
The ship was the one set that we had in the movie, and I don't have any experience building sets. Originally, the plan was to build it at my parents' place. We built one wall and immediately realized it has to be way bigger than I thought it needed to be. And there's no way that we'll be able to move it back and forth once we start building it. Like it has to be built, and it just has to sit there.
My parents happened to have a carport that was suitable. So I spoke with my parents about letting us build a spaceship in their backyard.
Yeah, so it might have been maybe a week or two before we started shooting, and I went out to check out the build site of where they made the ship. Walked on in and I thought, wow, they've done so much.
I'm gonna put in this corner, like coming across here, where that'll be like the workstation. So theoretically, there'd be a hallway here that runs all the way to the front where the cockpit is. So yeah, I'm gonna build for that wall, so when we look through here, there'll be something on the other side. I think it'll have to be like here, some sort of box, so we can shoot it that way when she's sitting at the bench down here. I think it ended up being built in about 2 weeks. It was like really under the pump. And I remember going out there each night after work until midnight by myself and cutting up wood and screwing stuff in and painting it.
I helped with the painting of the ship and the production design, the set design of the ship as well, which was a very interesting process for me, being an audio engineer.
I think by the end of it, I was just most happy that it essentially matched the very early plans and drawings that I did up for it. One big thing I didn't want to do, even though we still did it, I did not want to be in that list of like, hey, we got Nerf guns and we spray painted them and now they're wacky sci-fi weapons. I really wanted you know, design these prop weapons and like have them look unique.
I took a lot of those designs and I took them to my dad, who happened to be a sheet metal worker. He said that he could do it. We went back and forth with designs, making little tweaks, adding stuff. And then, yeah, I had the fun task of inhaling spray paint for 4 or 5 days. One of our pride and joy props that we managed to put together was the locator for Jax.
Jax's locator in the film is actually a toy chainsaw from Kmart. It's like the handle that we took off and cut in half.
And we had to kind of take it apart, work out the structure of it, and then put LED lighting strips, like all good things. You just chuck LEDs on it. There had to be a functioning switch so that Jax could turn it on and off depending on what was happening in the scene.
Whatever.
Throw in a couple of filters in post and it actually looks like it could be something from the future.
Thankfully, it all came together in the end. I was finishing the set off and making the last few props, like literally the day before shooting.
It's getting cold.
Yeah, I reckon it's gonna get cold quick.
Okay, rolling camera, roll audio.
Rolling. In the leads, shot 1, scene 5, take 1.
Action.
Day one, I mean, it was the first kind of test of how we're going to go shooting.
First thing is how beautiful that the day was. I was looking around a lot, just taking photos because I'd never been there. And that's what I love about movies.
I remember there being quite a few people on set that day because everyone was fresh and excited and really keen to get filming.
We picked a scene that was pretty much right in the center of the film. I wanted to start on this one because it was kind of like a moment where the characters challenge each other.
I love like characters that have that sort of range, and for me starting on that level really solidified my power as a character. And even though I barely knew Serene, we bonded straight away because we had to go into such a powerful scene.
Dan and I both like to talk to ourselves when we're rehearsing. And he's the first other actor that I've ever met that does that. So it made me feel really at home. So like, because you sound like a crazy person, like just talking to yourself and like really going for it and then trying a different tone and then trying another tone again. Did the same thing. I was like, this is where I belong. But yeah.
It's great when you find an actress that will match you and really, really cares that much about what you're doing together. So yeah, we were both, I think, in awe of each other, which is a great way to feel as an actor. That you're like, oh, we could do something really special here.
I also remember Matt's drone.
Yeah. So day one.
Matt, as in not Matt director, but Matt actor.
Brought his drone along.
Thought I'd throw the drone up and do a bit of a scout just to see what the Great Toowoomba looked like.
Takes his drone off and he's kind of like looking around.
Mid-flight, we're all watching it kind of in awe, like, wow, look at this drone.
What I didn't realize was the drone battery was not in the drone properly.
Next thing you know, this little piece falls out of the drone and then the drone plummets to the ground.
There's a battery fell out like... I feel so bad for him.
Why is it falling? What's that other thing falling out of it?
Yeah, spent a good half an hour just trying to track down this battery from this drone.
Yeah, and I really wanted to find it. I tried so hard.
And we never saw it again. It was day one. We lost equipment, yeah. Expensive drone battery.
Poor guy.
Action.
Our plan for day two was to shoot 2 separate scenes. The first one being later in the film.
Jax and Cadence are in amongst all these like waist deep fern trees.
It was a pretty intense scene that day and we kind of really got to see them work. We got to see them do their trade.
No, I loved the scenes running through the ferns. That day I really remember loving that.
It reminded me of Jurassic Park, actually.
I think we got probably some of the best shots in the film, in my opinion.
The second day in the ferns, I was waiting for everyone to get ready shooting. So just for my own amusement, I went down around the corner and I just started recording my own footsteps on the road, on the path, in the ferns. I was just walking around in circles, recording my feet while everyone was figuring out what they were doing, which I used quite a bit of those sounds in the film.
One funny thing I remember happened was Serene had to like stay down on the ground, like she'd been knocked over, and Dan had to run off. I think Matt had yelled out like, "Good job, just stay down, that's great." And Dan had just thought they said cut, and so we just started running straight back into the scene.
Oh, Dan, what have you done? We were still rolling. Okay, let's try it once more.
So the second part of day 2 was we had to film up on the hill.
So pivot across to where he's on the right, and then once he starts walking again, just stationary from that point and have him walk out of the shot.
Sorry to hear that.
Why do you care?
Looking for someone. Thought it might have been them.
So yeah, the owner of this property where we filmed, we know him by Captain Ron.
Captain Ron.
And he's got quite a few stories to tell.
Captain Ron is a legend.
No, I do remember Captain Ron. I remember him being quite the character.
After we'd met him, we probably should have just jumped ship and made a Captain Ron film.
He was definitely an entertainer.
Anyway, he was a great guy. He let us film there, and he had quite a few stories to tell. And whoever was not directly filming got to hear many stories.
Okay, cut. That was pretty good, guys. There's a couple things.
Again, the first thing I remember was always the set locations and how perfect they were. You know, it just sets it all up, doesn't it? So I remember walking up that hill and just feeling like, oh wow, this is where it should happen. All these scenes.
Awesome, guys.
Cool, that was good.
Roll audio.
Yep.
Scene 10, shot 8, take 1.
Day 3 comes along, and Overlord Matt was kind enough to give us the day off. A bit of recovery, bit of R&R. Cashing in a token, I think, so that he could send us through a brutal night that we had ahead of us.
Yeah, so shooting the spaceship, we had to do overnight. It was the one day that we weren't fighting the sun going down and running out of light, and we just had unlimited amount of time at as much exactly the light that we wanted, and we just shot and shot.
I think we got there, you know, just on sunset, but we probably didn't finish until 3 or 4 in the morning, so it was nearly a full cycle of night.
I remember day 3 very clearly because it was about 3 degrees.
I've never been that cold. It was freezing, eh?
I rocked up with a giant snow coat and was still cold.
And the heater, we had to turn it off or something when we had to film because you couldn't have 2 things going at once or something like that. The sound is like, uh-oh, here goes the heating again.
In the scene, Cadence is supposed to be very scared, and she's like holding this gun. I was pretending to be scared and like feeling that, but a lot of the shaking and the breathing is because I was so cold that like if you see me doing that, I'm actually like, I'm so freaking cold right now. And it just really actually worked when I watched it back.
Poor Dan had to do the scene in just a t-shirt.
That was an experience, wasn't it?
He did a great job of making it look like it wasn't like absolutely freezing that night.
But I remember the first thing we saw was the ship.
When you walked into that, you actually felt like you were somewhere else.
I think that was the first time we'd actually seen what Matt had been making. It was just phenomenal, and we were just blown away.
It was a really cool set. Like, that's all I could say about that. I loved it.
Turned out like really well, I think, especially with lighting and all kinds of coloring. It really just looks like the interior of a ship.
The lights and the guns, it'd been really thought out. The bed, it seemed like exactly what Jax would be living in.
Even though if you see a picture of it from the outside, it's just a dinky little 3 walls, if that.
Quincy, who plays Rune, on his profile, it mentioned that he had done like fights and stunts and choreography and that, and I asked him if he'd be keen on choreographing a couple of the fights
He was working out the logistics of how people were going to be thrown around this ship without hurting them, without hurting the ship.
It was cool to be able to work with those guys and just have them trust me enough to be able to show them what we're trying to do. Because Serene wanted to try something different, and I wasn't too sure because I didn't think it suited the character.
He picked up, he was like, you can't act like you know what you're doing in this point because Cadence doesn't know how to fight.
She's more of a technician and not much of a fighter.
So he actually really helped from an actor's perspective to give off Cadence's uncertainty of how to fight.
Yeah, super easygoing, really cool to work with.
There was this one shot that we wanted to get looking at Cadence from the desk, and obviously we couldn't shoot that because we had a wall in the way.
We literally had to reposition me in the middle of the room while Dan was filming me from an angle that looked like I was actually on the workstation.
We set up like a chair and a stack of pizza boxes.
But actually I was in the middle of the room hovering, pretending to be sitting down at a table. It was really strange, but it was really cool, yeah.
We had a mattress that we pulled out to do the stunt onto the ground. He did a rehearsal and he just fully committed to it, ran, jumped, face planted into this mattress and just left this perfect imprint of his face in the red makeup.
You can see his face. Yeah. Yep.
That was a highlight of the night, I think.
I think I have memories of the sun coming up while we were driving home.
So it was a very, very big night of shooting, and then the next day we had another full day. So it was quite exhausting.
Day 4 was another long one that felt even longer after the 90 minutes of sleep that we had the night before.
We spent all afternoon out in Crow's Nest Falls.
We shot a scene that was like a bit of an action scene, and then later on the edit we figured out that it wasn't really working, so ended up rewriting it and reshooting it to a better result. But that was like the bulk of what we shot on day 4.
And action. Okay, up, shoot.
I think Billy was everyone's favorite person on set.
Oh my God, Billy! Ah!
Billy was just a machine.
Oh my God, what a worker.
He would just be running around grabbing sand and pushing it back and forth, raking the set over and over again. Billy was just the life of the party, and we could not have done a lot of things without him. Billy equals 3 people. 1 Billy is 3 average, yeah.
Nearly every shoot that I'm a part of now is we need a Billy. No one knows what I'm talking about, but we do.
Can you do that again? I'll hold it up like a Tusken Raider.
Do Star Wars!
Okay, we're good. All right.
We just done a whole basically day of shooting out there with the red makeup on and everything. And then we were all starving, so we went and got some food. And then here is Carlin and Ben just in Subway, just ordering their subs, just in full makeup, full costume.
The Subway ladies are like, oh, okay.
Yeah, we went out to a location that Jason had prepared for us. Originally we were debating whether we have a real fire or just a fake one. But we ended up going with a real one. It made it authentic. It made it look like they were actually out there in the cold alien world.
I think within that 30-hour time window between day 3 and 4, I only got 90 minutes of sleep.
I think it really helped to be that exhausted and beaten up in real life to have this night scene where we're just beaten up and tired and just bonding over a fire.
Oh, I remember when we were at the campfire, you're like, oh, you look really tired tonight. And I was like, I was fucking tired.
The actors did a phenomenal job in a tense and long scene and a long shooting process as well.
That's what I hang out for. I mean, they're harder because, you're in the bush and you're coping with the elements. But I just feel like that's where the fun is too.
Yeah, so on the last couple of days of shooting,
it was a lot of the end of the film being shot, so not a lot I can talk about on camera. But if you wanna find out more, watch the film.
We had a bit of choreography that needed to be done.
Matt had the idea of putting in another fight scene, which I wasn't aware of, and he asked if I could put it together in a day. I was freaking out a little bit, but I was like, okay, I think I can figure something out.
And I've been brainstorming with the actors about what we wanted to happen at the very end of the film. We felt like it could be a lot stronger than how it was written in the script. And we just spent the whole time like talking about what we thought would be best for the character and the story at the end.
Just a lot of working out where we want the film to go and letting it adapt, letting it evolve during the process, not kind of letting the script dictate what we wanted to do with it. That it was just feeling it out as we go and being able to adapt, but not at the expense of creativity.
The ending that you'll see in the final film was like far from the one that was written in the script. And I think it's like a much more powerful, emotional one.
Okay, rolling audio.
Yep.
Scene 2, shot 1, take 5. And flashlight, action.
Day 7, starring my boy, Robin Eberhard, McCann, the big blue machine. Got to sit down with him for probably 2-3 hours just caking on makeup to him. I think we made him look better than, just being a normal dude.
Robin was mandatory casting. As every time we make a movie in Toowoomba, it's like, okay, how do we get Robin in there? And I don't think he's got like any actual acting training or anything like that, but he always shows up and he's like just 100% committed to like whatever role we ask him to play. And I was like, hey man, can you, you kind of speak German, can you invent an alien language and then give up your Saturday and come to set and get painted? And he was just like, yeah, no worries.
We got to the location, which was a big open area where we had to set up all the tents and everything. And yeah, I remember just getting started and just banging in tent poles and just going for it and just setting up just wherever and moving things around. It was pretty chaotic.
I think it was really cool just watching the establishing shot for the campsite, having it open on McCann and then exploring this whole different world.
Doing that shot required quite a lot of planning for the extras to be, coming in at certain times when it was, framed up, okay.
It was like a dance sequence and we had to do that a few times, but we managed to pull it all together.
I think it was 15 takes of this first long take shot.
We were playing with this idea of diversity and I thought it'd be cool to accentuate that through my character, and having Dan speaking Italian here and there.
Fammi vedere. 3 minuti. Questo è la vita.
I thought it'd be cool to speak another language. I got help from my dad as well, having it translated to Samoan, because I don't actually speak the language, but I do represent it to some extent. I think it was really cool to be able to be given that opportunity and just presenting it to Matt and him being all for it, so very cool experience.
It was such a good week. It was a difficult week because it was just like constant, 12, 14-hour days for 7 days straight. My favorite part of filmmaking is that it's super collaborative. It's not like a one-person job. And I feel it's far more my responsibility as a director to just soak in everyone else's ideas and then kind of channel them through my vision for the film and just really know what's going to work and what's going to benefit it. And 9 times out of 10, everything that people were throwing in was yeah, that just improves this scene so much. And so, it wouldn't have happened without all their contributions. The one thing that I'm most proud of that we were able to achieve, and it mostly came out through the editing, was reviewing the film with friends of ours and having proper feedback on the story, and then actually going back and reshooting a couple of scenes or changing lines here or there to really tighten it and making it more clear.
Just please get in touch if you're even still out there.
We went back to the governor's chair for a 3rd time to reshoot the ending and bring the film to this awesome kind of climax.
At one point we got ready to shoot.
I don't know if it was a bus that dropped them off, but probably 20 tourists just show up.
And yeah, they came, they saw, they took pictures. It probably cut 20 minutes out of our time, but you do what you can.
There may or may not be some sound bites from the tourists that are layered into the film.
By the time we came back to do these reshoots, it was September, October. Things are starting to heat up. And 2 of the scenes that we reshot, we just got attacked by flies. Either one of the characters would have half a dozen flies just sitting on their shoulder. And I was utterly determined that you don't find this on the planet that these guys are on right now, and they have to be removed. painstakingly removed every fly, and I dare anyone watching the film to find one, because it's not there.
So Matt did the majority of all the visual effects, but one of them that we did a bit of back and forwards between was, at one point, the locator that he's using, he goes to put it in his bag, but it actually falls over his leg and doesn't go in the bag. Out of all the takes we did, because it was a bit of a complicated shot, that take happened to be the best take. So we ummed and ahed over whether we could actually achieve this, and Matt put a huge amount of work into correcting it so it actually drops into the bag. And I can absolutely guarantee that if we never told you this, you would never know. So for the color grading process of the film, I definitely wanted to spend a bit of time and get, I guess, what you would call digital relighting, where you would be darkening certain areas of the frame and lightening certain other parts to sort of emphasize what it is, where it might have been, otherwise impossible to bring out, regular lighting. So I spent a lot of time using certain techniques to try and emphasize certain things in the frame, to try and bring attention for the audience to certain elements and things like that.
He never even used DaVinci Resolve, the same with I hadn't even used After Effects prior to starting this film, and we all kind of started from ground zero and just had to learn and teach ourselves in the process of bringing all these things to life.
Apart from actually working on set with all the cast and the crew, one of the other things that I actually enjoyed most was the sound design and creating essentially an entire world of sound. I got to create gunshots, I got to create alien voices, I got to create alien animals, which was challenging, but was definitely very rewarding when you actually see it pieced all together at the end. We ended up doing about 2 or 3 ADR sessions where we got the actors in to re-record their lines for certain scenes that the on-location sound just didn't work out. We ended up getting Dan to jog on the spot for a little bit because we needed him to be exhausted and be puffing. At one point, Dan thought it would be fun to beat on his chest to create punching noises, which funnily enough actually ended up in the film, and we used them for any of the fight scenes.
Yes.
So
good. So when it come to the soundtrack of the movie, I had a friend of mine, a local musician, Andrzej Fenner.
I haven't found those right words to say.
So I told him a bit about the film, and he was pretty keen on seeing what he could come up with for something a bit more, experimental and something a bit unusual to what he would normally make.
One thing with the music that I really wanted to do with this film was have recurring themes and motifs. And
we started working on it together in his home studio. We wrote certain sort of melodies for each character that would be continued through the film. Cadence had her sort of melody. As well as her brother Baz. Jax had his as well. Every time something about that character would occur, there'd be little pieces of music to sort of run its course through there. So it was nice to have those repeating elements to work off, so we could have a framework of how each sort of character's mood is throughout the film. We were relatively on track to having the film finished, but then along came good old COVID, and it halted a lot of the production.
So all of a sudden, we couldn't continue with music. We couldn't get the actors back to re-record lines, which was very frustrating. But on the flip side of that, I think that it actually gave us the opportunity to make the film better than it was previously. We had more time to get family and friends to watch it and give their opinion on certain story beats and that, and it changed a whole bunch of film, but definitely for the better. And I mean, obviously I'm not happy that COVID happened, but I'm happy that we had that break because it definitely pushed us in the right direction to making a stronger film.
Call it shot 3. Up a bit.
Up high.
Up high. Yep, you're good.
Good.
Shot 3, take 1.
So I made a big mistake with Cadence in that I finished my previous film and I said, the next one, I want it to be smaller and easier. And we failed on every account because this thing just blew up to be like so much bigger than what any of us had anticipated.
Okay. Everyone good to go? Yep.
You know, you're only going to think back in the future and go like, that was crazy, I can't believe we did it, but totally worth it.
I think the overall experience for Cadence was absolutely amazing. I felt like I'd sort of stepped into a family after the first table read from that moment forth. I think we all just felt, I don't know, it was like an instant family.
Matt was super understanding for every single person that was on set. He thought about all of their needs, their perspectives. He took everything on board, even if they didn't completely understand the script at the time. He would listen and adapt. But there was not one moment where I felt like, you know, it was just his project and it had to be his way. It was just his heart and soul, and he wanted everyone to be a part of it equally and love it.
A lot of easygoing people to be able to collaborate with and just create something meaningful to all of us. This has been one of the coolest things I've ever gotten to work on.
And even if there's hundreds and hundreds of hours of footage that will never see the light of day, I don't regret any of it.
It was fun. You know, when you're having fun and you're playing, then it's not hard to do well under those circumstances, you know what I mean?
For the end product to look the way it does with the level of experience that we all have is quite amazing, and it's a testament to everyone involved in the work that was put into it.
I would say it was the most inspiring and fulfilling project I've ever worked on, with the most passionate people, but also the most difficult, exhausting. I feel like I went on a journey with Cadence of self-discovery.
It was there a little bit in the original draft, but I think COVID really brought this out, and like one of the major themes of the film is just kind of like persevering through your worst moments. And they say you should always just write what you have the most experience with. I just wanted to tell this story of when you're backed into a corner and in a terrible spot, you've got two choices essentially. You can either give up and say like, well, that was a waste of time, whatever, or you can pick yourself back up and go, you know what, that was really challenging, that was really hard, but I'm going to find the strength within myself to keep moving forward.